The cold bit into her skin like 1,000 tiny knives, and Lily Edwards realized with growing horror that her father was not coming back for her that night. She pressed herself against the wooden wall of their cabin, trying to find shelter from the relentless Montana wind that howled across the settlement of Camp Verde, carrying with it flurries of snow that stung her cheeks and collected in her dark hair. It was December 1878, and the temperatures had dropped so dramatically that even the hardened ranchers spoke of it in hushed, worried tones. Her father had shoved her out the door 3 hours ago, his breath reeking of whiskey, his eyes wild with the rage that had become increasingly familiar since her mother died 2 years prior. She had tried reasoning with him, tried apologizing for whatever imagined slight had set him off this time, but Daniel Edwards was beyond reason. He had grabbed her by the arm, dragged her to the door, and thrown her into the darkness with nothing but the thin dress she wore and her worn boots. The door had slammed shut, and she heard the heavy bolt slide into place. She had pounded on the door until her hands were raw, screaming until her throat burned, but the only response was silence and the occasional crash from inside as her father continued his drinking. Now, as midnight approached, Lily could no longer feel her fingers or toes. Her teeth chattered so violently she thought they might crack. She tried to stay awake, knowing that sleep in these conditions meant death, but her eyelids grew heavier with each passing moment. The snow had begun falling harder, accumulating on her shoulders and lap as she huddled against the wall. She thought about running to a neighbor's house, but the nearest homestead was over a mile away, and she doubted she would make it 10 yards in her condition. Her mind began to wander, growing fuzzy around the edges. She thought of her mother, of how different life had been when Catherine Edwards was alive. There had been warmth then, laughter, the smell of bread baking and wildflowers in mason jars. Her father had been stern but fair, a rancher who worked hard and came home tired but content. Now he was a ghost of that man, hollowed out by grief and filled with nothing but whiskey and bitterness. Lily was 18 years old, and she had spent the last 2 years trying to be enough for her father, trying to cook like her mother, to keep the house the way her mother had, to somehow fill the void that Catherine had left behind. But nothing was ever right. The stew was too thin or too thick. The floors were not clean enough. She talked too much or not enough. And when he drank, which was most nights now, any small thing could set him off into a rage. She had never imagined he would do something like this. Yell at her, yes. Send her to bed without supper, certainly. But to leave her outside in a Montana blizzard was a death sentence, and some part of her wondered if that was exactly what he intended. Her eyes drifted closed despite her best efforts to keep them open. She was so cold now that she almost did not feel cold anymore, which some distant part of her brain recognized as a very bad sign. She slumped further against the wall, snow gathering on her like a burial shroud. She did not hear the horse approaching. She did not hear the boots crunching through the snow or the sharp intake of breath when the rider spotted her. She was only vaguely aware of strong arms lifting her, of being pressed against something warm and solid, of a voice speaking urgently near her ear. Jesus Christ. Hold on, just hold on. Lucas Garrett had been riding back from the Turner Ranch when he decided to take the shortcut past the Edwards place. He had been playing cards with Tom Turner and a few other ranchers, a weekly tradition that helped break up the monotony of winter. The game had run late, and Lucas was eager to get back to his own cabin and his warm bed. He almost missed her entirely, but his horse, a reliable bay named Copper, had suddenly balked and refused to move forward until Lucas dismantled and investigated. That was when he saw her, a dark shape against the darker wall, covered in snow. For a horrifying moment, he thought she might already be dead, but when he knelt beside her and brushed the snow from her face, he felt the faint whisper of breath against his hand. He did not waste time trying to wake her or asking questions. He scooped her into his arms, alarmed by how light she was, how cold her skin felt even through her dress. He looked at the cabin door, saw that it was bolted from the inside, and felt a surge of rage so powerful it nearly choked him. What kind of monster would do this? But anger would not help her now. He carried her to Copper, managed to mount while holding her against his chest, and spurred the horse toward his cabin. It was closer than town, and she did not have time for him to ride all the way to the doctor. She needed warmth, and she needed it now. The ride felt endless, though it could not have been more than 10 minutes. He kept talking to her, nonsense words of encouragement, anything to try to pull her back from wherever she was drifting. She remained limp in his arms, her head lolling against his shoulder. When he finally reached his cabin, he kicked the door open and carried her straight to the fireplace. The embers from the morning fire still glowed faintly, and he quickly built it back up, feeding it kindling and logs until flames roared to life. Then he turned his attention to the girl in his arms. He laid her on the bearskin rug in front of the fire and began assessing the damage. Her lips were blue, her skin deathly pale. Her dress was damp from the snow, which meant he needed to get her out of it and into something dry. He hesitated for only a moment, propriety warring with necessity, but necessity won. He had seen men die from exposure before, and he would not let this girl become another casualty of the harsh Montana winter. He worked quickly and efficiently, averting his eyes as much as possible while he removed her wet dress and boots. He wrapped her in every blanket he owned, then carried her to his bed, tucking the blankets tightly around her. He heated water on the stove and filled 2 glass bottles, wrapping them in cloth and placing them near her feet and against her core. Then he simply sat beside her and waited, checking her pulse every few minutes, watching for any sign of improvement. An hour passed. 2. Finally, as dawn began to break outside his window, he saw her eyelids flutter. A few minutes later they opened, revealing eyes the color of sage in summer. Lily woke slowly, confusion clouding her thoughts. She was warm, impossibly warm and comfortable in a way she had not been in months. For a blissful moment, she thought she was a child again, safe in her mother's bed, but then memory came flooding back. The cold, the snow. Her father's face as he shoved her out the door. She sat up abruptly and immediately regretted it as the room spun around her. Strong hands steadied her shoulders. Easy now. You are safe. She turned to see a man sitting beside the bed, a man she vaguely recognized from town but had never spoken to. He was perhaps 23 or 24, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of winter sky. His face was lean and weathered from working outdoors, with a strong jaw and a nose that looked like it had been broken at least once. He wore a simple flannel shirt and worn jeans, and he was looking at her with an expression of concern mixed with something harder, something angry. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice coming out as barely more than a rasp. Her throat felt raw, and she remembered screaming at her father's door. "Lucas Garrett, I found you outside your father's cabin last night. You were nearly frozen to death." The words hung in the air between them. Lily looked down and realized she was wearing a man's shirt, far too large for her and wrapped in multiple blankets. Heat flooded her cheeks as she understood what that meant. "I apologize for the liberty," Lucas said quickly, seeming to read her thoughts. "But your dress was wet and you needed to get warm. I did not look more than necessary, I give you my word." "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my life. What the hell happened?" The anger she had glimpsed earlier came through stronger now. Why were you outside in the middle of a blizzard? Where was your father? Lily looked away, shame burning hot in her chest. How could she explain? How could she tell this stranger that her own father had thrown her out to die? It was an accident, she said, the lie tasting bitter on her tongue. I went outside to check on something and the door locked behind me. My father must have been asleep and did not hear me knocking. Lucas stared at her for a long moment, and she could tell he did not believe a word of it. But to her relief, he did not press the issue. You hungry? He asked finally. I can make some breakfast. As if on cue, her stomach growled loudly. She could not remember the last time she had eaten. Yesterday morning, perhaps. I do not want to be a burden, she began, but Lucas was already standing. No burden. I was going to make breakfast anyway. She watched him move to the kitchen area of his cabin, which was small but well maintained. Everything had a place, she noticed. Pots hung from hooks. Dishes were stacked neatly on a shelf. It was the home of someone who lived alone but took pride in his space. While he cooked, she took the opportunity to look around more carefully. The cabin was a single large room with a sleeping area at one end and living space at the other. A small table with 2 chairs sat near the window. Books lined a shelf on one wall, which surprised her. Most of the ranchers she knew could barely read their own names. Beside the books was a photograph in a simple frame, showing a stern-looking couple and a young boy she assumed must be Lucas. Your parents? She asked. He glanced over his shoulder. They died of fever when I was 16. The ranch is mine now. I am sorry. He shrugged, cracking eggs into a pan. It was a long time ago. She wanted to tell him that time did not always heal, that sometimes grief just became part of who you were, but she kept quiet. Instead, she asked, do you run the ranch by yourself, mostly? I have a couple of hands who come in during spring roundup and harvest, but winter is pretty quiet. Gives me time to read. He said it almost defensively, as if he expected her to mock him for it. Instead, she felt a surge of envy. Her father had forbidden her from reading her mother's books after Catherine died, saying they filled her head with nonsense. She had managed to hide a few volumes, reading them in secret by candlelight, but it was not the same as being able to read openly, freely. Lucas brought over 2 plates heaped with eggs, bacon, and thick slices of bread fried in butter. Lily's mouth watered at the sight. She tried to eat slowly, to maintain some semblance of dignity, but hunger won out and she found herself devouring the food with an urgency that embarrassed her. If Lucas noticed, he did not comment. He ate his own breakfast in silence, occasionally glancing at her with that same concerned expression. When they finished, he cleared the plates and then sat back down, his expression turning serious. You cannot go back there, he said bluntly. Lily felt her chest tighten. I have to. He is my father. It is my home. He left you outside to die. You do not know that. I told you it was an accident. And I told you I do not believe that for a second. Lucas leaned forward, his eyes intense. I saw the bolt on that door. It was locked from the inside. And I heard stories about Daniel Edwards, about how he has been drinking himself to death since his wife passed, about how he has gotten mean with it. Tears burned at the back of Lily's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. What would you have me do? I have nowhere else to go, no other family, no money of my own. Stay here. The words were out before Lucas seemed to fully consider them. They both froze, staring at each other. I could not, Lily said finally. It would not be proper. People would talk. People are already talking about your father, about the bruises you try to hide, about how thin you have gotten. He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. Look, I am not suggesting anything improper. You can have the bed. I will sleep in the barn or in front of the fire. But I cannot in good conscience take you back to that house knowing what I know. You do not know anything, Lily said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Then tell me I am wrong. Tell me your father has never laid a hand on you in anger. Tell me you were not terrified last night, knowing he had locked you out. Tell me this was really just an accident." She opened her mouth, but no words came, because he was not wrong about any of it. And the truth was, she was terrified of going back. Terrified of what her father might do next time, because there would be a next time, there always was. "Even if I wanted to stay," she said quietly, "my father would come looking for me. He would demand I come home." "Let him demand. You are 18, old enough to make your own choices." The law would side with him. "I am unmarried. Technically, I am still his property until I wed." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. It was the brutal truth of being a woman in 1878 Montana. She had no rights, no legal standing. She belonged to her father until some other man claimed her. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working as he thought. Then he said something that shocked her to her core. "Then marry me." Lily stared at him, certain she had misheard. "What? Marry me?" he repeated, and this time his voice was steady, sure. "If you are married, your father has no claim on you, you would be free of him." "That is insane. We do not even know each other." "I know you are brave. I know you have survived things that would break most people. I know you deserve better than what you have been given." He met her eyes steadily. "And I know I could not live with myself if I sent you back there and something happened to you. But marriage," she shook her head, overwhelmed, "that is permanent, binding. You would be stuck with me." "Would that be so terrible?" She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. He was handsome, she supposed, in a rough-hewn kind of way. But more than that, there was a steadiness to him, a quiet strength. He had saved her life. He had given her food and warmth and asked nothing in return. And now he was offering her freedom, even at great cost to himself. "Why would you do this?" she whispered. "You do not know me. You do not love me. Why would you saddle yourself with a wife you do not want?" "Who says I do not want one?" He smiled slightly, though his eyes remained serious. "I am 24 years old. This ranch is thriving. Eventually, I was going to need to think about marriage, about having a family to leave this place to. And if I am being honest, the prospect of marrying some girl whose father just wants to make a business arrangement never appealed to me. At least this way, we would both be choosing it. We would both know what we are getting." "But you do not love me," she repeated. "Not yet," he agreed. "But I think I could. And maybe in time you could love me too, or maybe we would just become good friends and partners. Either way, it would be better than what you have now." Lily's mind raced. It was insane. It was impulsive and reckless and could end in disaster. But it was also a lifeline, a way out of the nightmare her life had become. "If I said yes," she began slowly, "what would you expect from me? As a wife, help running the household if you are willing. Someone to talk to in the evenings, companionship." He paused. "As for the marriage bed, that would be your choice. I would never force you. We could wait until you were ready, or we could decide to keep things platonic entirely. I would leave that up to you." The fact that he even considered her feelings on the matter made her want to cry. Her father had already fielded offers from men in town who looked at her like she was livestock, something to be purchased and used. The idea that Lucas would give her a choice, would respect her boundaries, was almost more than she could comprehend. "I would need to get my things from my father's house," she said, and realized as she spoke that she had made her decision. Lucas's expression brightened. "We can do that today together, and then we can ride into town and find the preacher." "So soon?" "No point in waiting. The sooner it is done, the sooner you are safe." Safe. The word echoed in her mind like a prayer. When was the last time she had felt truly safe? "All right," she said, her voice stronger now. "Yes, I will marry you." Lucas smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Then I guess we should get you dressed and head into town." He retrieved her dress, which he had washed and dried by the fire. It was still worn and patched, but it was clean. She changed in the corner while he politely faced away, and when she was ready, he helped her into his spare coat and they headed out to his horse. The ride to her father's cabin was tense. Lily kept expecting to feel regret or doubt about her decision, but all she felt was a strange sense of relief, as if a weight she had been carrying for 2 years had finally been lifted. When they arrived, the cabin looked exactly as it had the night before. The door was still closed, smoke rising from the chimney. Lucas helped her down from the horse and then positioned himself slightly in front of her, protective. "I will be right here," he said. "You are not going in there alone." She nodded, grateful, and together they approached the door. She knocked, her heart pounding. There was a long silence, then the sound of heavy footsteps. The door swung open, revealing her father. Daniel Edwards looked terrible. His eyes were bloodshot, his face unshaven and haggard. He stared at Lily for a long moment, confusion crossing his features, as if he was not quite sure why she was standing there. "Lily," he said, his voice hoarse, "what are you doing out here? Come inside, girl, you will catch your death." He genuinely did not remember. The realization hit her like a physical blow. He had thrown her out to die, and he did not even remember doing it. "I am here for my things," she said, her voice shaking. "I am leaving." Her father's confusion deepened. "Leaving? What are you talking about? This is your home." "Not anymore." She lifted her chin, drawing strength from Lucas's presence beside her. "I am getting married. Today. I am going to be Lucas Garrett's wife." Daniel's eyes shifted to Lucas, and she saw the moment recognition and rage dawned simultaneously. "The hell you are," he snarled. "You are my daughter. You are not going anywhere." "She is 18, Lucas said calmly, "old enough to make her own choices, and she has chosen to marry me. I do not give my permission. We do not need it. The law says that at 18 she can marry without parental consent if she chooses. Get off my property before I fetch my rifle. I am just here to help her collect her belongings. Then we will be gone." Daniel looked back at Lily, and she saw something in his eyes that might have been pain or regret, but it was quickly swallowed by anger. "You would leave me? After everything I have done for you? After I fed you and clothed you and kept a roof over your head? After you threw me outside to freeze to death last night, you mean?" The words burst out of her before she could stop them. Her father blinked, confusion washing over his face again. "I did no such thing. You are telling lies." "I am not lying. You were drinking. You got angry. You dragged me outside and locked the door. If Lucas had not found me, I would be dead right now." "That is not true. I would never." But his voice lacked conviction, and she could see the doubt creeping in, the horrible realization that he might have done exactly what she described and simply not remembered it. "I am getting my things," Lily said firmly. "You can let me in peacefully, or Lucas can help me break down the door. Either way, I am taking what is mine and I am leaving." For a moment, she thought her father might actually fight them. His hands clenched into fists and his jaw worked furiously. But then something in him seemed to collapse. His shoulders sagged and he stepped aside, gesturing weakly into the cabin. "Take whatever you want. Clearly I cannot stop you." Lily moved past him quickly, Lucas staying close behind her. She went to the small corner that had been her mother's space, where a trunk still held Catherine's few treasures. She opened it and began pulling out what she wanted to keep. Her mother's wedding dress, a cameo brooch, a leather-bound journal, a few letters. Then she went to her own small area and gathered her few possessions. 2 more dresses, a brush, a small wooden box containing ribbons and buttons and other small treasures from her childhood. It all fit into one canvas bag. Her entire life, reduced to something she could carry in one hand. She turned to leave and found her father standing in the doorway, watching her with hollow eyes. "You are just like her," he said quietly. "Just like your mother. Same stubborn streak. Same way of looking at a man like he is less than he should be." "Mama loved you," Lily said, her throat tight. "And you loved her. But when she died, you let yourself die too, and you tried to take me with you. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Again and again. And last night you nearly killed me." "I do not remember." His voice broke. "God help me, I do not remember any of it." For just a moment, Lily felt a flicker of pity for the broken man standing before her. But then she remembered the cold, the terror, the certainty that she was going to die alone in the snow, and the pity hardened into something colder. "Then I hope you remember this," she said. "I am leaving. I am marrying a good man, and I am never coming back." She walked past him, Lucas right behind her, and climbed onto the horse. Lucas mounted behind her, his arms coming around her to take the reins, and they rode away without looking back. The ride into town was silent, but it was not an uncomfortable silence. Lucas seemed to understand that she needed time to process what had just happened, and she was grateful for his intuition. Camp Verde was a small mining settlement that had grown up along the creek. It boasted a general store, a saloon, a livery, and a small white church at the far end of the main street. Lucas guided Copper directly to the church and helped Lily down. The preacher, a kindly man named Reverend Thomas, was working in his small garden when they arrived. He looked up in surprise at their approach. "Lucas Garrett, as I live and breathe, what brings you into town on a weekday? I need you to perform a marriage, Reverend. Today. Right now, if possible." Reverend Thomas's eyebrows shot up. He looked from Lucas to Lily and back again. "That is rather sudden, is not it?" "It is necessary," Lucas said firmly. "And legal. She is 18 and we are both of sound mind and willing." "I am not questioning the legality, son. I am just surprised. I did not even know you were courting anyone. We are not, or we were not." Lucas glanced at Lily. "It is complicated, but we are both certain this is what we want to do." The Reverend studied them both for a long moment, and Lily had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through them, could see all the desperation and fear and hope tangled up in this impulsive decision. But finally he nodded. "All right, come inside. We will need witnesses, though." "I will fetch someone," Lucas said. He jogged across the street to the general store and returned a few minutes later with the storekeeper, Mr. Chen, and his wife, a sturdy woman named Margaret who had always been kind to Lily on her infrequent trips to town. Margaret took one look at Lily's worn dress and pale face and seemed to understand more than had been said. She disappeared into the back of the church and returned with a blue shawl, which she draped gently around Lily's shoulders. "Something borrowed," she said softly. Every bride should have something special on her wedding day. The kindness nearly undid her. Lily blinked back tears and managed a shaky smile. "Thank you." The ceremony itself was brief. They stood before the simple altar while Reverend Thomas read from his prayer book. Lucas spoke his vows in a clear, steady voice, promising to honor and protect her for as long as they both lived. When it was her turn, Lily's voice trembled but did not break. "I, Lily Edwards, take you, Lucas Garrett, to be my husband. I promise to stand beside you, to support you, and to be faithful to you for as long as we both shall live." Lucas produced a simple gold band that Lily realized must have been his mother's. He slid it onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Thomas said. "Lucas, you may kiss your bride." Lucas leaned down and pressed a chaste, gentle kiss to her lips. It was over in a second, but Lily felt the touch of it reverberate through her entire body. They were married. She was Lily Garrett now, free of her father, bound to this near stranger who had saved her life. Mr. and Mrs. Chen congratulated them, and Margaret pressed a basket into Lily's hands. "Just a few things from the store," she said. "Consider it a wedding gift." Lily peeked inside and saw fresh bread, a jar of preserves, coffee, and a small bottle of honey. Luxury items, all of them. "I cannot accept this," she protested, but Margaret waved her off. "Of course you can. And if you ever need anything at all, you come see me. You understand?" The weight of the words, the unspoken understanding behind them, made Lily's eyes burn again. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. They said their goodbyes and rode back to Lucas's ranch as man and wife. The sun was high in the sky now, the snow from the night before already melting in places. It seemed impossible that less than 24 hours ago, Lily had been certain she would die. Now she was married, beginning an entirely new life. When they reached the cabin, Lucas helped her down from the horse and then stood there awkwardly, as if he was not quite sure what to do next. "So," he said finally, "I suppose we should figure out how this is going to work." "I suppose we should," Lily agreed. "Right. Well." He cleared his throat. "I meant what I said earlier about you having the bed. I can sleep out here by the fire, or I can set up a cot in the barn if you would prefer." "That seems foolish," Lily said slowly. "It is your home. I will not force you to sleep on the floor or in the cold barn. We are both adults. We can share the bed without it meaning anything improper. I trust you." The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him, but they were true. She did trust him, this man who had married her to keep her safe, who had asked nothing in return. "Are you sure?" Lucas asked. "I am sure. We can hang a blanket between us if it makes you more comfortable." "I think we can skip the blanket. I promise to be a gentleman." They spent the rest of the day settling into their new reality. Lucas showed her around the ranch properly, introducing her to his 3 cows, his 2 pigs, the chickens that lived in a surprisingly well-built coop. He showed her his winter stores, his tools, the small vegetable garden that lay dormant beneath the snow but would need tending come spring. Lily, in turn, took stock of the cabin and began to make it feel more like a home. She unpacked her few possessions, hanging her mother's wedding dress carefully in the wardrobe next to Lucas's spare shirts. She set the cameo brooch on the shelf next to the photograph of Lucas's parents. She arranged her small treasures on the windowsill where they would catch the light. For dinner, she used the ingredients from Margaret's basket to make a simple but hearty meal. Bread with butter and honey, fried eggs, and sliced apples. They ate at the small table, and for the first time, Lily felt something almost like contentment. "You are a good cook," Lucas said, sopping up egg yolk with a piece of bread. "My mother taught me. Before she died, I mean." "Tell me about her," so Lily told him. She talked about Catherine Edwards, who had come west from Ohio as a mail-order bride and found love with a stern rancher. She talked about her mother's garden, her beautiful singing voice, the way she could make even the smallest cabin feel like a palace. She talked about how her mother had loved books and learning, and had taught Lily to read despite her father's protests that education was wasted on a girl. Lucas listened intently, asking questions, and gradually Lily found herself relaxing. Talking to him was easy in a way she had not expected. He did not interrupt or dismiss her stories. He seemed genuinely interested in learning about her life, her mother, the person she had been before tragedy struck. In return, he told her about his own parents. His father had been a stern but fair man who had built the ranch from nothing. His mother had been the daughter of a shopkeeper, educated and refined, but she had taken to frontier life with surprising adaptability. They had died within days of each other when fever swept through the territory, leaving 16-year-old Lucas to manage the ranch alone. "I almost lost it," he admitted. "That first year I almost lost everything. I did not know what I was doing and I was too proud to ask for help. But Tom Turner, the rancher I was playing cards with last night, he took me under his wing, taught me what I needed to know. I owe him my life, really." "You have done well," Lily said, looking around the cabin. "This is a good home. You should be proud." "I am, or I was." He smiled slightly. "Now I am hoping it will be a good home for both of us." As night fell, they prepared for bed with an awkwardness that was almost comical. Lily changed into her nightgown in the corner while Lucas faced away, then climbed into bed and turned toward the wall while he changed into his nightshirt. They lay down with a careful foot of space between them, both rigid with awareness of the other's presence. "Good night, Lily," Lucas said into the darkness. "Good night, Lucas." Lily closed her eyes, expecting to lie awake for hours, her mind racing. But the warmth of the bed, the full belly, and the sheer exhaustion of the last 24 hours caught up with her. Within minutes, she was asleep. She woke once during the night, disoriented and gasping from a nightmare about the cold and snow. She must have made a sound because Lucas stirred beside her. "You are safe," he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. "You are inside. You are warm. You are safe." The words, spoken with such certainty, calmed her racing heart. She took a deep breath, let it out slowly, and settled back into sleep. The next few weeks passed in a strange sort of limbo. Lily and Lucas established a routine, orbiting around each other like planets learning a new gravitational pull. They were polite, careful, each trying not to intrude too much on the other's space while simultaneously trying to learn how to share a life. Lily threw herself into improving the household. She cleaned the cabin from top to bottom, organized the kitchen, mended Lucas's worn clothes. She learned to make bread the way his mother had, using the sourdough starter he had somehow kept alive for 8 years. She experimented with the limited winter ingredients available, finding ways to make their meals more varied and interesting. Lucas, for his part, included her in the daily operations of the ranch. He taught her how to care for the animals, how to check the winter stores, how to mend fences and clean tools. He never spoke down to her or suggested the work was too difficult for a woman. He simply showed her what needed to be done and trusted her to do it. They talked in the evenings, sharing stories and learning about each other in small increments. Lucas told her about his love of reading, how books had saved him during that first terrible year alone. Lily confessed her own love of stories, and he began reading to her by firelight, his deep voice bringing the words to life. They slept beside each other every night, that careful space between them gradually shrinking as they grew more comfortable. Sometimes Lily would wake to find Lucas's arm thrown over her waist, or she would realize she had curled against his side in her sleep. Neither of them acknowledged these accidental intimacies, but neither did they pull away. And slowly, carefully, something began to grow between them. It started as friendship, as mutual respect and companionship. But there were moments when Lily would catch Lucas watching her as she worked, an expression in his eyes that made her heart skip. There were moments when his hand would brush hers, and she would feel a spark of something that had nothing to do with friendship. Winter began to loosen its grip on the land. The days grew incrementally longer. Snow melted, revealing the first hints of green beneath. And with the changing season came a shift in the relationship between Lily and Lucas. It happened on a clear March evening. They had spent the day cleaning out the chicken coop and preparing the garden beds for spring planting. Lily was exhausted but happy, covered in dirt and laughing at something Lucas had said. When they came inside, Lucas built up the fire while Lily heated water for washing. She was scrubbing her hands when she felt him come up behind her. She turned and found him standing closer than he usually stood, looking at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Lily," he said softly, "can I kiss you? Really kiss you, I mean, not like at the wedding." Her heart was pounding so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. "Yes," she whispered. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones, and then he kissed her. This kiss was nothing like the chaste peck they had shared at the altar. This kiss was deep and searching, full of weeks of restrained longing. Lily's hands came up to grip his shirt, and she kissed him back with equal fervor, all the feelings she had been trying to deny pouring into that single point of contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. "I am falling in love with you," he said. "I did not expect it to happen so fast, but I am. I love your strength. I love your kindness. I love the way you hum when you are cooking and the way you scrunch up your nose when you are concentrating on something. I love who I am when I am with you." Tears streamed down Lily's cheeks, but for once they were happy tears. "I am falling in love with you too," she admitted. "I did not think I could after everything. I thought I was too broken, but you make me feel whole again." They kissed again, and this time when they made their way to the bed, it was as true husband and wife. Lucas was gentle and patient, taking his time, making sure she felt safe and cherished. And when they finally came together, it felt like the final piece of something clicking into place. Afterward, lying tangled together in the darkness, Lily felt a sense of peace she had never known before. She had been saved from death, from her father's violence, from a life of fear and pain. But more than that, she had been given a chance at real happiness, real love. "Thank you," she whispered against Lucas's chest. "For what? For finding me, for saving me, for giving me this life." Lucas pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "Thank you for taking a chance on a half-frozen cowboy you barely knew," she laughed, the sound light and free. "Best decision I ever made." Spring arrived in full, transforming the harsh landscape into something beautiful. Wildflowers bloomed across the meadows. The creek swelled with snowmelt. The garden Lily had planted began to sprout, tiny green shoots reaching toward the sun. Lily threw herself into the work of spring with enthusiasm. She tended the garden obsessively, coaxing each plant to grow. She helped Lucas with the cattle, learning to ride and rope and brand. She made friends with the neighboring ranchers' wives, women who welcomed her into their small community without judgment. She saw her father once, from a distance, when she and Lucas rode into town for supplies. He was standing outside the saloon, looking even more haggard than the last time she had seen him. Their eyes met across the street, and for a moment, Lily felt a pang of something that might have been grief or pity. But then Lucas took her hand, and the moment passed. She turned away and did not look back. By the time summer arrived, Lily realized she had not thought about her father or her old life in weeks. She was too busy living her new one, too happy to dwell on the past. She also realized she was pregnant. The signs had been there for a while, but she had been hesitant to believe them, afraid to hope. But when she missed her monthly courses for the third time and could no longer button her skirts comfortably, she could not deny it any longer. She told Lucas that evening, nervous despite herself. They were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, and she simply blurted it out. "I am going to have a baby." Lucas froze, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. He set it down carefully and turned to look at her, his eyes wide. "Are you sure?" "Yes, I think I am about 3 months along. The baby should come in late November or early December." For a long moment, Lucas just stared at her, and Lily felt a flicker of fear. Maybe he was not ready. Maybe he had not thought about children yet. Maybe this was too much too fast. But then a slow smile spread across his face, growing wider and wider until he was grinning like a fool. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her soundly. "We are going to have a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "Lily, we are going to be parents." Relief and joy flooded through her. "You are happy about it." "Happy, I am ecstatic. Terrified, but ecstatic." He placed a hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." Lily laughed, tears streaming down her face again, and let herself be held by the man who had saved her life in more ways than one. The pregnancy was not easy. Lily suffered from terrible morning sickness that lasted well into her second trimester. She was exhausted all the time, and her emotions swung wildly from joy to fear to frustration. But Lucas was patient through all of it. He held her hair when she was sick. He rubbed her aching back. He brought her food she could actually keep down and sat with her when she was too tired to move. As her belly grew, so did the preparations. Lucas spent weeks building a cradle, sanding and polishing the wood until it was smooth as glass. Lily sewed baby clothes from soft fabric Margaret donated, tiny shirts and gowns and blankets. They argued playfully about names, each lobbying for their favorites. The neighboring women rallied around Lily, sharing advice and hand-me-down baby items and stories that ranged from helpful to terrifying. Mrs. Turner, Tom's wife, became a particular friend, visiting often to check on Lily and offering to serve as midwife when the time came. Fall arrived, painting the world in gold and red. Lily's belly was enormous now, and she moved slowly, her back aching constantly. She was tired of being pregnant, tired of not being able to see her own feet, tired of needing to use the outhouse 12 times a night. But she was also overwhelmingly happy. She would catch Lucas talking to her belly when he thought she was asleep, telling the baby stories about the ranch, about its grandparents, about all the things they would do together. She would feel the baby kick and know that her child would be born into a home full of love, so different from the one she had left behind. The baby came on a cold December night, almost exactly a year after Lucas had found Lily in the snow. The labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 20 hours. Lucas stayed by her side the entire time, letting her squeeze his hand until she thought she might break his fingers, murmuring encouragement even when she cursed him for getting her into this situation in the first place. Finally, as dawn broke over the mountains, their son was born. He came into the world wailing, red-faced and angry and perfect. Mrs. Turner placed him in Lily's arms, and she stared down at the tiny miracle she and Lucas had created. "Hello, baby," she whispered. "Welcome to the world." Lucas was crying unashamedly, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his wife and son. "He is perfect. Lily, he is absolutely perfect." They named him James after Lucas's father. James Lucas Garrett, born on December 23, 1879. The early days of parenthood were exhausting and overwhelming. James was a fussy baby who did not like to sleep and had an impressive set of lungs. Lily was sore and tired and leaking from places she had not known could leak. Lucas was terrified he would break the baby if he held him wrong, but they figured it out together, learning as they went. Lucas would walk the floor with James for hours when the baby would not settle, singing cowboy songs in his off-key voice until James finally drifted off. Lily would nurse the baby while Lucas read to them both, the three of them curled together in the big bed. Slowly, they found their rhythm. James began sleeping for longer stretches. Lily's body healed. Lucas grew confident in his ability to care for his son, and life settled into a new normal, chaotic and exhausting, but full of a love so fierce it sometimes took Lily's breath away. The years passed quickly. James grew from a fussy infant into a rambunctious toddler with his father's dark hair and his mother's green eyes. He loved the animals and the outdoors, following Lucas around the ranch from the moment he could walk, chattering constantly in his high, sweet voice. When James was 2, Lily discovered she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier, her body knowing what to expect. Their daughter, Rose Catherine Garrett, was born on a sunny June morning in 1882. She was the opposite of her brother in every way, calm where he was wild, quiet where he was loud. She had Lucas's blue eyes and Lily's dark hair, and from the moment she was born, she had her father wrapped around her tiny finger. The ranch continued to thrive. Lucas expanded his herd and bought more land. He hired 2 permanent ranch hands, which took some of the burden off his shoulders and allowed him to spend more time with his growing family. Lily's garden became legendary in the territory, producing more vegetables than they could possibly eat. She sold the surplus in town, and the money she earned became the fund for someday, as she called it. Someday they would add a room onto the cabin. Someday they would buy James a horse of his own. Someday they would take a trip to see the ocean. Lily occasionally heard news of her father through the town gossip network. He had sold his ranch and moved into a room above the saloon. He drank steadily, never causing trouble but never quite sober either. He had become one of those sad, broken men who haunt every frontier town, more ghost than person. She felt pity for him, but she also felt grateful. Grateful that she had escaped. Grateful that her children would never know that kind of fear or pain. Grateful for the life she had built with Lucas. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Lucas surprised her with a gift. He led her outside to find a brand new sign hanging over the porch. Garrett Ranch, ESD, 1872. Below that, in smaller letters, Lucas and Lily, partners in all things. Partners, Lily repeated, her throat tight with emotion. I like that. It is the truth, Lucas said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. This ranch, our family, this life we have built together, none of it would be possible without you. You are my partner, Lily, in every way that matters. She turned in his arms and kissed him, pouring 5 years of love and gratitude and joy into that kiss. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she smiled up at him. I love you, Lucas Garrett, more than I ever thought it was possible to love another person. I love you too. From the moment I found you in the snow, my life became something more than I ever imagined it could be. They stood there on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains, their children playing in the yard, and Lily thought about how different things could have been. If Lucas had not ridden past that night, if he had not seen her, if he had not been the kind of man to help a stranger in need, but he had. And from that single act of kindness, an entire life had bloomed, a love she had never expected, a family she never dreamed she would have. A home that was truly safe. The years continued to pass, bringing both joy and sorrow. When James was 7 and Rose was 5, Lily gave birth to twin boys, Samuel and Simon. The pregnancy had been difficult, and the birth even more so, and afterward the doctor told her gently that she should not have any more children. Lily was sad about it, but also content. 4 children, all healthy and happy. It was more than enough. The children grew and thrived. James developed his father's love of ranching and his mother's way with growing things. By the time he was 12, he could rope a calf better than most grown men and could make anything grow in the garden. Rose was quieter, more studious. She loved books as much as her parents did and announced at age 8 that she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. The twins were inseparable, a matched set of mischief and energy that kept their parents on their toes. Lucas and Lily's love only deepened with time. They still talked every evening, sharing the events of their days. They still read together by firelight. They still reached for each other in the night, their passion mellowing but never fading. They had arguments, of course, disagreements about how to handle the children or run the ranch, but they had learned how to fight fair, how to listen to each other, how to compromise. When Lily was 35, she received word that her father had died. He had been found in his room above the saloon, apparently having drunk himself to death over the course of several days. The sheriff asked if she wanted to make arrangements for the burial. Lily stood in the sheriff's office, holding the telegram, feeling oddly empty. She had not seen or spoken to her father in 17 years. He had never met his grandchildren. He had never tried to contact her or apologize for what he had done. "Yes," she said finally. "I will pay for a proper burial. He was my father, whatever else he was." Lucas went with her to the small cemetery where they laid Daniel Edwards to rest. There were only a handful of people there. Lily and Lucas, the reverend, the undertaker, and a few of the men who had drunk with Daniel over the years. As the reverend said the final prayers, Lily felt Lucas take her hand. She squeezed back, grateful for his steady presence. "Are you all right?" he asked as they walked back to their wagon. "Yes," Lily said, and realized it was true. "I am sad for what might have been. Sad that he never got help, never found peace after my mother died. But I am not sad he is gone. Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you human," Lucas said. "He hurt you deeply. You are allowed to feel however you feel about his death." "I just keep thinking about that night," Lily admitted. "The night you found me. If things had gone differently, if you had not come along when you did, I would have died out there. I would never have known this life, this love. I would never have known you or our children. It all came down to one moment, one decision, one act of kindness." "I think about that too," Lucas said softly. "About how easily I could have taken a different route home that night. About how close I came to losing you before I ever knew you. But you did not. You found me. You saved me. You loved me. And I will keep loving you for the rest of my life," Lucas promised, "however long that may be." They climbed into the wagon and rode home, leaving the cemetery and the past behind them. The years marched on. James married a lovely girl from the neighboring ranch when he was 22, and they had 3 children in quick succession, making Lily and Lucas grandparents. Rose did indeed become a teacher, opening a small school in Camp Verde. She married at 26 to a shopkeeper's son who supported her work and loved her fierce spirit. The twins, inseparable as ever, went into business together, opening a freight company that served the growing territory. Lucas's hair went gray, then white. He moved a bit slower, his joints stiff from decades of hard work, but his mind remained sharp, and his love for Lily never wavered. Lily's dark hair developed silver streaks, and her face lined with the evidence of a life well lived. Smile lines around her eyes, creases from laughter around her mouth. They celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary surrounded by children and grandchildren, the cabin bursting at the seams with noise and love. That night, after everyone had left and it was just the two of them again, they sat on the porch where they had spent so many evenings over the years. "Do you ever regret it?" Lucas asked. "Marrying a stranger to escape your father, taking such a risk?" "Never," Lily said without hesitation. "Not once. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Lucas Garrett, you and our family, this life we built together." "I feel the same way," Lucas said. He took her hand, his fingers still fitting perfectly between hers after all these years. "You know, when I found you that night, I thought I was just saving a life. I had no idea I was finding my future, my purpose, my everything." "We saved each other," Lily said. "I was dying in the cold and you were dying of loneliness. We were both just surviving, not really living, and then we found each other. And started living," Lucas finished. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. The same stars that had looked down on a terrified girl freezing in the snow and the cowboy who found her. The same stars that had witnessed a hasty wedding and a slow building love. The same stars that watched over a ranch that had grown from one man's homestead into a legacy for generations to come. Lily leaned her head against Lucas's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She thought about the girl she had been at 18, broken and afraid, certain that her life was over. She could never have imagined then that she would end up here with this man, with this beautiful life. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best ones. Sometimes tragedy opens the door to joy. Sometimes you have to nearly die to learn how to truly live, and sometimes a cowboy rides past at exactly the right moment and changes everything. Lucas pressed a kiss to the top of her head, and Lily smiled, her heart full to bursting. She had been found. She had been saved. She had been loved. And she had loved in return. It was more than enough. It was everything. The story of how they met became legend in their family, passed down through generations. The tale of the girl left to die in the snow and the cowboy who could not ride past someone in need. It was told at family gatherings and whispered to children at bedtime, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope remains. That kindness matters. That love can bloom in the most unexpected places. Lucas and Lily lived to see all their children settled and happy, to meet their great-grandchildren, to celebrate 50 years of marriage. They grew old together, their love only deepening with each passing year, until it seemed impossible to remember a time when they had not been together. When Lucas finally passed away at the age of 78, he did so peacefully in his sleep, Lily's hand in his. She followed him 2 years later, her heart finally giving out after 8 decades of feeling deeply and loving fiercely. They were buried together on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built, their headstones simple but eloquent, Lucas Garrett, 1854–1932. Beloved husband, father, grandfather, he saved her life and she gave him purpose. Lily Garrett, 1860–1934. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother. She was found in the snow and bloomed in the warmth. Their descendants continued to run the ranch for generations, each one carrying forward the legacy of love and resilience that Lucas and Lily had established. And on cold winter nights, when the snow fell and the wind howled, the family would gather around the fire and tell the story of how it all began, with a girl freezing in the snow and a cowboy who refused to look away.